are we on this fine Saturday afternoon? Good. Welcome, welcome. My name is Sarah Colley. I'm the Community Engagement Coordinator here at the Great Falls Public Library. And I am so thrilled to bring another author talk here. I know most of you guys know our authors, so that's awesome. But thank you for being here. We'll figure it out as we go along. Just for some safety things, the restrooms are out in the hallway, and then there's also a water fountain out there. Maybe if we just spread it out a little bit more. There we go. Now it's good. I think we'll figure it out. And then in case of emergency, the stairs are out the door to the right and to the right again. The emergency stairs are open right now so that you guys can just exit that way if you want to at the end of the program, but that is completely up to you. So today we have Reena McCarty. Reena is a lifelong Montanan who's constantly looking for the perfect balance of hiking, camping, and impulse baking cakes. I agree. She has a BA in theater, a master's in library science, and somehow ended up cooking for a living and also for fun. When not writing, Reena can often be found wandering in the woods with her husband, admiring every dog she sees. Same. Cassiopeia is here to sell her book today, so if you don't have a copy yet, you can snag one after the program. But please join me in welcoming Reena.
Thank you all so much for coming. Wow, this is very loud.
I am on my phone because I've got notes, not because I'm being very, very rude, just impossibly rude. Anyway, oh boy, you can tell that we traveled all day, sorry. My name is Theo Stymack, this is Reena, and she's asked me to help moderate this and to start things off with a couple of questions.
It just seemed easier than me yapping.
So just to give you guys an idea about what we're planning to do today, we're going to start with this sort of loose interview-ish conversation about what the process of writing the book, Tricky Business and Faerie Bargains. We're also going to be talking about writing in general, about the story, about maybe publisher insider things, depending on how much time we've got. I've got a timer going on my phone because we want to save a lot of time to open up to questions from the audience as well. So without further ado, let's go ahead and get into it. First question I've got for you is, we very kindly got your author bio. Is there any additional information that you think people should have?
I don't think so. I love seeing so many familiar faces in this crowd. Thank you all so much for coming out. I am possibly a little bit more excited to see a couple of unfamiliar faces. That is always fantastic, this sort of thing. But no, I grew up in Great Falls. I lived here for a long time, and it's wonderful to be back. I haven't been in this library since, 2012. I came here and unsuccessfully interviewed for a job. I wasn't entirely qualified. They should not have given it to me, and they didn't. But it's wonderful to be back in a different context.
Now, I'm sure the book's been out for about a week. I'm sure I've read it. I think it's great. But for the people who haven't read it yet, the book that we're talking about is Tricky Business and Faerie Bargains. I'm just going to read the marketing copy on the back to get everybody a little bit up to speed. When Poppy Hill was a child, she was stolen from her family's Montana homestead and taken other side to the land of the Fae, where she spent more than a century as a cook in the Wild King's castle. Now back in the human world, Poppy works for a company that brokers faerie bargains, checking for loopholes in the contracts. When a bargain Poppy is negotiating goes disastrously wrong, she must return other side to try to rectify her mistakes, facing danger, intrigue, and a pesky ex-boyfriend along the way. Is there anything that you feel like the marketing team missed, or something that you'd like to delve into or correct?
It's not a romance. It sounds a little bit like a second chance romance. It is not a romance. Don't be mad at me when there is not a romance that happens. That's all marketing of numbing.
All right, so talking about the book itself, we've discussed writing stories before, and we've both heard the opinion that the easiest part is the idea. So in the interest of starting easy, where did the initial idea for Tricky come from?
So, I often am thinking of little jokes out of nowhere. And one day I thought to myself, you know, if fairies were real, I bet you'd have to buy fairy insurance. There would be someone out there who wanted to sell it to you. And then because I'm a bit of an overthinker, I sat down and I was like, well, wait, what if though? Like, what if there was someone selling you fairy insurance? What would that mean? Why would they be doing that? And the obvious answer is because fairy bargains are dangerous. Like, the odds of getting tricked or trapped or killed are not low. And so you'd want to get insurance before you did one. And it all kind of spiraled out from there into this thing right here.
And once you've got an idea that you want to pursue, where do you typically like to start with the writing?
I tend to start with characters. I need to know who the story is about and why it's happening to them. And then I am very much a planner, an outliner. I sit down and I kind of figure out the beats of the story. I figure out what is going to happen and why. If I don't know where I'm going, then I end up writing, 6 to 8 terrible drafts and then throwing them out and starting over, and that is not an efficient way to write a book. And it is not a way that will get you a book in time to do anything with it. So I need to sit down and organize my plot, figure out who it's about, and then I can write it.
When you say you start with characters first, who is the first character that really came to you in Tricky?
Well, it wasn't Poppy. The first version of this book did not have Poppy, my current protagonist, as a main character. I started writing about a girl named Violet, because apparently flowers is the only names that I can think of. And it didn't work. She was a little bit too unmotivated. She was a little bit too sad. I had to kind of stop and reconfigure and come up with a new heroine whose kind of base state wasn't woe is me, it was I'm mad. Poppy starts the book as kind of a very angry person who feels like she's been done there's a lot of injustice in her world, and she wants to get back at the people who she sees are as doing her wrong. I think the only character in the book who never really got reimagined or renamed or both is the ex-boyfriend in question, Poppy, who was another side of a fairy named Elan. He was kind of there from the beginning, but everyone else changed it at least.
On the subject of the pesky ex-boyfriend, a lot of fairy fiction, the fair folk, like it's right in the name, they tend to be very beautiful, very ethereal, very very attractive. You made what I assume is a conscious decision to make all of them monstrous, like in some small or big way. And like I say, that must have been a conscious decision. I'm just curious what drove that choice.
Well, I hate money. And there's so many giant fairy series where there are beautiful fairies and everyone loves them and they sell zillions of books, and I was like, none of that for me. I want to write about weird uggos. No, I think that I wanted to write about fairies that were not human. I wanted to make this otherworldly group of people who were not human. And looks aren't all of that. Like, there are some, you say it's everyone, some of them, like, there are certainly kind of offhanded mentions of other siders who look relatively human. They're normal looking, there's some that are very beautiful, whatever. But none of them are human. They don't think like humans. They don't act like humans. They are different from humans. The big thing in my world that distinguishes them from humans is that they lack creativity. They lack the ability to create. They cannot write, they cannot paint, they cannot sculpt, they cannot invent. They can't cook. They can't look at eggs and flour and butter and see anything but eggs and flour and butter. They can't see cookies, they can't see brioche. They can only see things as they are, not what they could be. And making something that is that inhuman and then making them just look like people just didn't seem very interesting to me.
And the other part of that, in addition to it being like they're not physically, but also not mentally, there's, by my count, about 4 principal characters in this book, and at least 3 of them at any given time are monstrous in some way, inhuman in some way. Poppy included on multiple occasions. And is there something about that monstrousness or inhumanity that you think is particularly fascinating or illuminating?
I just think it's really interesting to look at the world through eyes that are as different from yours as possible. And doing it that way kind of forced me as a writer to really sit down and be like, what is it like to be in this person's head? How do they see things that are so different from me? And how can I make people understand them and relate to them? Like, I want people to feel empathy for these characters. I want people to kind of see why they're doing what they're doing, even if it's objectively not a good thing. And I just think it's an interesting challenge, and it makes the story more interesting. Everyone in the book is like nice and good and gets along. Then like that is a type of book that exists, and I do enjoy reading it, but it's not something that I personally can spend several years of my life immersed in. It does not hold my interest.
And one of the things that you're talking about with them being different is that they can't imagine. An aspect of that, this is something that you pulled from traditional fairy lore also, is that they can't lie.
Mm-hmm.
How annoying was it to write an entire book that has got a bunch of plots and schemes and deception where the majority of the cast cannot, under any circumstances, say something false?
Very annoying. I do not recommend it. Don't try this. Especially because I did want kind of a twisty political plot where people were keeping secrets and doing deceptions. But if you ask them a direct question about it, they can't lie to your face. They have to say something that is misdirecting. There were a couple of points where I realized that I had a fairy character say something that was untrue and that they knew was untrue, and I had to backtrack and rewind and start over because that's not possible. I can't do that. It's one of those things where, again, it's a challenge, and the challenge is part of what makes it interesting.
If you're going to be doing something for multiple years, it should at least be interesting to do.
But it is very hard, and I would not recommend it.
So you all have that to look forward to, is trying to parse out all of the deception that is very dishonest, but always accurate.
I will say, it's difficult. It is incredibly satisfying to write a line that you know reads one way, and then if you go back and read it a second time, knowing what happens next, like reading it will mean something different. Like, that's incredibly satisfying. I feel so smart whenever I manage to pull it off.
It's really satisfying as a reader as well,
Yeah.
to get to go through it, because I've had the great fortune of getting to read this book 3 times now.
It's very kind.
The other thing about the book is it is set in Montana, not just Montana conceptually, but Montana.
Yeah.
It's rooted in geography, to the point that every single location in the book is at most a few hours drive from where we are right now. Like, we could all go get in our cars, we could go look at the places that are in the book. There might not be castles or like fairy markets there, goblin markets there, but they'd be there. What made you want to set a fantasy novel, like, just so close to home?
I think it's just kind of familiarity. When we say we could drive through all the places in the book, what I mean is that this book is set mostly on Highway 200 between Sims and Lincoln, and we drove here from Missoula today on Highway 200, so it was very much driving through all of these locations to be like, hey, we're here, hey, we're here, hey, there's that island that I put at the end of the book. If we stop and climb up to the top of Rogers Pass, like, that is where my castle, my fairy castle is. It's at the top of Rogers Pass. If you hike up top of the mountain there, if you go to Sculpture in the Wild in Lincoln, there is a fairy castle there that's made of branches, and it was directly the inspiration for some of the architecture. The most common piece of writing advice you get is write what you know, and that is often taken very literally, and it makes lots of boring novels. But you can use, like, what that advice means is, like, you can use the things around you to make something that is new and is interesting and is fantastical. You can look at what is, and you can imagine what will be, unlike a fairy.
And why did you decide to destroy the town of Sims, Montana?
No, I needed their location. Their location was perfect for what I was trying to do. I really needed my protagonist, like, all Big Polar books kind of a road trip story. I really needed my protagonist to start out about 60 miles from Lincoln, and Sims was right there.
Now, in addition to the real landscapes, there's also a lot of little jokes, bits, observations that, to me, is a lifelong Montana. Reed is very Montana. Is there something in the book that you think that somebody not from the region would pick it up, they'd read it, they'd go, oh, that's just some fantastical made-up thing that people who know would know?
So I'd actually forgotten about this one until a friend who was reading the book texted me the other day. I briefly have a mention of Sealy Lake. And in some traditional fairy mythology, two types of fairies are Sealy and unsealy courts. And I don't use that in my book, but we have a lake that is called Sealy Lake. And so I changed the spelling to the traditional fairy word, but I left the lake there with the name Sealy attached to it. And that, to me, is extremely funny. Maybe it's only funny to me. And it's one thing that, if you're from Montana, you might see that and be like, why did you spell it wrong? And if you're not from Montana and you know the fairy lore, you'll be like, okay, it's named after fairies. The only other thing I have is I have one geography sheet. Like, I kept all of this real geography, and it's almost all real geography, and there's one thing that I cheated, and no one's called me out on it yet.
She had to tell me
I had
what
to
it
tell them
was.
what it was. So I'm not going to tell you guys what it is.
There's a prize.
Not a prize. Except the sense of satisfaction that you might get from catching my cheat and being like, oh,
That's a prize.
that's wrong.
Prize would be the friends we made along the way.
Could be. But yeah, so I'm very curious as to whether anyone will catch it and call me out on it. So if you see it and you think you know what it is, like, I'm on Instagram.
So the other thing is, like you said, it's 60 miles from point to point. And almost all of it for Poppy at least, is on foot. There is a lot of hiking in this book. Some people might say too much hiking.
Normal amount.
Compared to the principal cast of the book, how do you stack up as a hiker?
I mean, I am a better hiker than Poppy. One of my biggest challenges in this book is there's a ticking clock element. She has 2 weeks to solve her problem, and then she will run out of time. And like 60 miles is a long way, but if you have 2 weeks, you can probably walk 60 miles if you're like in relatively good shape. So the first thing I had to do was not let her be in relatively good shape. She was woefully out of shape at the start of the book. So I needed to limit her, for plot reasons, to about 10 miles a day, which is a hike, like, that's 3 or 4 hours, like
Yeah,
4
it's not
hours.
bad.
Like, it's doable. You can do that and be home in time for lunch if you get an early start, if you are a relatively regular hiker. But, so if you're really out of shape, 10 miles is a lot. She's hiking from Sims to Lincoln on Highway 200, so that first stretch is very hilly. It's a lot of up and down, which is rough. Like, I would also kind of struggle with that. And I also decided that in other sides of my world, every 10 miles along this road, there is safe water and a safe place to sleep, like a magically protected shelter. And so if you go 10 miles, you can stop and you can have a safe place to camp. And if you keep going and you can't go another 10 miles, which 20 miles in a day, if you're not you're not a serious backpacker, that's a long way. So 10 miles kind of became a natural, like, she can push through this. It's hard, but it's doable, but she's not going to be able to go 20, so she has to stop at 10. And that was kind of the limiting factor I put in. And to be fair, 10 miles is kind of about as far as I want to go in a day. Like, I would also like to stop and have a snack and maybe a nap after that point.
Well, and it doesn't help anything, but that's only, what, 2 of her 14 days?
Yeah, like, things do go awry, because it is a novel and things have to happen. Reading about someone walking
For 2 full
uneventfully
weeks.
for 2 weeks is not super interesting.
The other thing about Poppy is that she is a former professional cook. And you are also, in your day-to-day, a professional cook.
I'm writing what I know.
So which of you, are you a better cook or is Poppy?
I think Poppy is better at cooking under adverse conditions than I am. So in my fairy world, there is not, first of all, there is no iron, there is no steel that is poisonous and dangerous and bad. And so
More
that's
traditional fairy lore.
for traditional fairy lore. So that really limits the quality of your knives. So there's a lot of, they have bronze knives, they have stone knives. That's a good way to cut yourself. And they also tend to have kind of lower tech, like magic and technology aren't mixing, like human technology is going to break pretty immediately if you try to bring it across. So if you put me in a kitchen with a stone oven and a bronze knife and ask me to make you something, I'd be like, I hope you like apples. like I could maybe manage something, but it wouldn't be pretty and it wouldn't be good, whereas Poppy, those are the conditions that she grew up cooking in, and she would do it well. I think that I am probably more, at this point, compared to the point that she starts the book, like, I'm going to know more what to do
In a modern
kitchen.
Less to do when under direct threat from a supernatural monster in the kitchen, forcing you to make lunch.
Like, I don't know if it's 100% transferable skill set in either direction.
Speaking on the food, there's a long, proud tradition in fantasy fiction of describing delicious meals. And there's a lot of food in Tricky, most of which I would describe as delicious. What do you think is the best, tastiest meal in the book, and why is it the cookies in chapter 1?
I would say cookies are not a meal, Theodore.
That's entirely a matter of willpower. You can do anything if you try hard enough.
So there are some cookies that are good. I know this because I have made them in real life. They are a double chocolate cookie with dried cherries. Pretty delicious. My other kind of big contender is the nachos. This is also pretty early in the book because she's in the human world and can use things like salt. Fairies can't have salt. Traditional fairy lore. Make some nachos that sound pretty good. Most of the backpacking food that she does is various types of dried stuff. Or I think she put some fish at one point. There's two. See, he's read it more recently than I have. She cooked some fish, which not for me. So yeah, the cookies are a strong contender, but not a meal. Please be reasonable.
Could be. Just gotta be enough of them. They got fiber, they got those cherries. Something I really enjoyed admiring your writing is how sharp it is, both in terms of humor and also in drama. Which of those do you prefer and find sort of more rewarding to do? Is the humor or the drama?
Humor is harder, and therefore when you can land it, it is more satisfying. Like, it's pretty easy to be like, oh no, this person is in a vice, let's tighten it. Oh no, now they're crying. Having that kind of happening and then having someone else over here being like, yatta, look at me. I'm a funny little guy is more of a trick. I don't know how much of the humor is like belly laugh type stuff. It's not a comedy, but I think that I'm funny.
No, it's very funny. It's got a lot of great jokes in it.
And I have a lot of jokes that I write that at least make me laugh. And continue to make me laugh draft after draft after draft, which I thought was impressive, and I was proud of myself. So I hope it made you laugh.
And so this is your first published novel, and I don't know if there's any aspiring writers in the audience, but they would be relieved to know this is not your first written novel.
Not even close.
If you feel comfortable sharing, how many novels did you write before Tricky?
Kind of depends on how generous we're being with the term novel. Like, if we're going peak generosity, like, sure, kid, that can be a novel, it's 6 or 7. If we're being a little bit stricter with our definitions, it's about 4. The Tricky is the 4th book that I wrote. I did multiple drafts, completed it, looked at it, said, this is the first one that I wrote that was good, or that was good enough. Like, I wrote books that had stuff that worked, stuff that didn't work, but ultimately I would kind of get to the end of their life cycle, their development cycle, and be like, it's not good enough. It's not, it doesn't have it, it's not gonna go. And this one, I kind of finished my 5th or 6th draft. And I read it and I was like, okay, this one's good enough. Now I guess I have to do something about it.
Was there something specific in this one that was sort of tipped it over in your mind that this is the one that was good enough, or was it just,
It was just
you just
eyes.
know? That's fair.
Like all of the other ones, I knew I would read them and I was like, nope, it doesn't do it. It doesn't work. They don't, like the characters aren't alive. The situations feel too contrived, like it doesn't flow. And I would work on them for years sometimes, revising and trying to make all of that work, and it didn't work. And then this one, I worked on for years. I did many drafts of it, and eventually I was just like, no, it works. Like there's nothing, like it's not perfect, it still needs work, but it's kind of got to the end of the point that I can do this on my own, and it is good enough. And if it doesn't sell, if I don't get an agent, if I don't get a publisher, it doesn't sell, it's not because the book is bad, it's because the market is bad, or I am not targeting the right people. But I know that the book is good. And it was just very like, I know it, and now I have to go do a bunch of stuff, because this is what I said I have wanted to do. This is the thing I've been trying to do. And so now I have to go make business things happen, which is very different from writing.
You keep saying a bunch of stuff. Would you mind walking people through sort of the process that happened for you,
Okay.
specifically from you finished the book and said, this is good enough, to the book being right here, you can purchase it from Cassiopeia Books today, and get it signed.
So I finished that draft, the one that was good enough, in early 2021. I had been working on the book off and on since late 2017. Like, this has been a long process. And I finished that, and I knew that I wanted to be traditionally published, which means going through like a publishing house rather than doing it yourself, hiring the editors, hiring covering designers. And in order to be traditionally published through a major publisher, which Tricky is out through Hachette, which is through Orbit, which is an input of Hachette, which is one of the 5 big publishers. Nobody cares. Thank you. You can't just send a book to a publisher, you have to get an agent first. You have to get a literary agent. And so in order to do that, you have to write a query letter, which is basically just a, hello, I am a person, I have written a book, this is a short description of the book, would you like to read part of it? And then you attach however much they ask for in their guidelines, which is usually about 10 to 50 pages. And you send them out, and you get form responses that say, no, thank you. And you do this off and on for about 2 years. This is not true of everyone. I know people who got agents very quickly. It took me about 2 years. Every so often I would stop and I would revise my letter, or a couple of times I stopped and I opened up the book and I was like, I'm going to read the book and I'm going to realize I was wrong and it's not good enough. And I would read the book and I would make little cuts and I would change things around and I would finish and I'd be like, no, it's still good enough. I still very much believe that it's good enough. So I kept doing this for a couple of years off and on. And then I got a full request. Like I kind of got to the end of my list of agents that I thought would be good fits. And I was like, I'm going to finish this list and then I'm going to shelve the book. Like, I think it's good enough, but it wasn't the right time, it wasn't the right list, whatever. And I got a full request that kind of on those last couple of agents, and I was like, sure, whatever. I've had pull requests before, never panned out. I sent it, I closed the list, I waited about 6 months. I was like, I'm gonna write something else, I'm moving on with my life, maybe the next one will work. And then about 6 months later, I got an email from my now agent being like, hey, is the book still available? I'd like to have a phone call. I was like, okay, I guess. And so I got an agent, and then we went on submission to publishers in October of 2023, or November of 2023. And at that point, the agent is basically doing the same thing that I had been doing. She wrote a letter saying, this is what the book is about, would you like to read it? Sends it to a list of editors at publishing houses. And in April of 2024, we got an email saying, we would like to buy the book and a sequel. And I was like, okay. So it took almost exactly 2 years that I got that offer, April 10th, 2024, and this book came out April 7th, 2026. So it's a very long development cycle, and like once they buy it, there's another round of edits with her, there's a whole bunch of production stuff that happens. So it's an ongoing process. I mean, not anymore, this one's done, you can buy it, I can't change it anymore, even if I want to. I will say, there's one change that I would love to make, and if you all have a pen on you when you're reading the book, it would be very helpful. House style or orbit is to not use Oxford commas. I would really prefer to use Oxford commas. So if you have a pen and you're reading and you see that there is not a comma there and you want to put it in, I absolutely endorse that. It was very sad that I had to take them out. I was not happy.
So my timer for this part was about to go off. I turned it off because nobody wants to listen to my alarm. But thank you so much for chatting with me.
Yeah.
And before we go on to audience questions, I'm sure that everybody would like to know, you mentioned a sequel.
Mm-hmm.
What?
It exists. It will exist. It'll be out next spring. That's all I can tell you about it right now, I think. I'm not allowed to tell you the title or really anything about it, I don't think. But if you like this one, and you're like, wow, I sure wish there was more, you are in luck. There will be more next year.
And last question, and that is just as a thank you to Cassiopeia. Is there a book right now that you think that after everybody buys a copy of your book, they should head down to Cassiopeia and pick up a copy of? Or request from the library?
I'm going to say no, but there's a book you should I mean, there's lots of books out right now that you absolutely should read. But I'm going to say that you should pre-order Love Galaxy by Sierra Branham. It is The Bachelor in Space with treason. And it is delightful, and I believe it is out in May.
All right, let's go ahead. We'll turn it over to audience questions. We'll go
Yeah.
front.
So, book 2, is it a part 2, or is it a different story?
It is a direct sequel. So the story, I like to think that the story in this one kind of wraps up and is finished. But there are some open ends, like there's some what happens next. And so book 2 is a what happens next.
And part 2 of my question, if these are very successful, which I'm sure they will be, is it worth setting in your previous books you don't think are good enough to...
They're still not good enough. Like, they're not good enough. Like, I have so many books that I would like to write, but going back and revisiting things that I tried and wasn't able to do, this doesn't seem worth it. Like, there's stuff that I'm excited about that I haven't written yet, and I would love to have the opportunity to write them. And hopefully, if this book is successful, somebody will want to buy those books, but none of the ones that failed. Like, I learned a lot writing them. I think anything useful from those books, I've kind of already cannibalized. I have taken character dynamics or settings or just vibes, and I've already kind of taken them and filed them away to possibly use in the future. Some of them have even been used in this book. But there's nothing in any of those that I think I would want to go back and try and salvage.
Thank you.
And I wanted to say one more thing before we do more audience questions. The book's been out for a week. Somebody, maybe other than me and you, have read it already. So if you're one of those people who's already read it, let's be respectful of the folks who haven't yet, and be mindful of the spoilers for plot.
No spoilers.
Okay, yes?
Two-part question, kind of piggybacked on his. Had you already started on a sequel? And did having a time crunch really freak you out?
That is a good question. It is kind of a known thing that the first book you write under contract is the hardest book you'll write. Your second published book, the first one you have under contract, the first one with a deadline, like, the sophomore slump is real. It's very hard. Everyone struggles. Everyone hates it. This is also the first time I've ever written a sequel. Like, it's one of those things where if the book isn't published and isn't sold, writing a sequel is a waste of your time because you can't sell a sequel independently. Like, you have to sell book 1 before writing book 2 is worth it. So yes, I have already started the sequel. I started writing the sequel basically the day that I got the offer because I knew I would have much less time. Like I said, I started this book in late 2017 and I kind of finished it in early 2021, which is a nice luxurious stretch of time. And in this one, I had about 14 months to turn in a draft of the sequel. In some ways it was easier because a lot of the work was already done. I knew who my characters were, I knew what my world was, I didn't have to start all that from scratch. But kind of coming up, like, doing edits on this book, like still working on book one while also writing book two meant some time juggling. It was a little bit beneficial because I could tweak things in book one in order to make book two work a little bit better. But it was very hard and it's very stressful, like just knowing that kind of with every book there's less and less time, there's less and less lead up. And that is difficult and it does freak me out a little bit. Book two is currently, I turned in my second draft of it in mid-March, and it's currently with my editor, and I should probably be getting it back in the next couple weeks to work on it some more. So, it's in production. Yes.
When I read it, I wondered about a prequel.
Interesting.
Yeah, Reena, how much thought did you put into the world while you were building it?
I put in a lot of thought, actually. I very rarely think that prequels are worth it. I can think of a tiny number of prequels that I think are actually adding something to the story. With this one, I feel like I kind of started the story where I wanted to start it. And I could maybe do a couple of short stories in the world earlier, but I don't see myself ever really wanting to write a prequel, a novel-length prequel. But I reserve the right to change my mind.
How much money would they need to offer?
I mean, probably less than you think.
Good answer.
Well, if Poppy spent 100 years as a cook, it seems like there is some time that there would be stories. But maybe those aren't interesting to you.
And that's kind of it, is I feel she delves into her past a decent amount, and it's like, I don't know if I want to see all that happen. If I were to write a prequel, it would almost certainly be about different characters and possibly in a different place, like earlier in the timeline. I think that these two books are all I'm going to write about Poppy. Again, I reserve the right to change my mind. I could be, it was a brilliant idea that has to be written, and all of this could go out the window.
Oh, let's go all the way back.
And then
How long did it take to come up with the book? Like the book's idea?
Well, I think coming up with an idea is not a one-off situation. You don't just sit up in the middle of the night and think, I have it! And you have the whole thing. Maybe some people do. I've heard of writers who do it this way, and I don't have their brains.
They all seem like liars to me.
So for me, I have little pieces of an idea, and I kind of collect them in a little pile until my pile is big enough that I can turn it into something book length. And so some of those ideas are the characters, and some of them are the world, and some of them are plot events. And then for me, the process of writing and the process of thinking are very much the same process. Like, I don't really know what I'm trying to say until I've written it down and I see that it's not right. So I wasn't trying to say that, let's rewrite it and try again and see what I can get. So I would say that coming up with the idea for this book, like the initial idea happened in about 5 or 6 years before the finished idea, which was the last draft. So it just takes a lot of time and a lot of practice and a lot of different kind of going through it and trying to get it right until you know exactly what you're trying to say.
Very iterative.
Iterative.
If you want a vocabulary word for the day.
Okay, so what's your favorite meal to cook as a human, and then did it make it into the book in a Fae version?
Ooh, that is a good question. And I think the answer to the second part, well, the answer to the second part is kind of yes. Like, I love nachos. I love nachos are easy. Nachos are quick, nachos are delicious. The nachos that Poppy makes are different than the ones that I make because I don't eat meat and she does, so she puts meat on hers and I wouldn't do that. I don't know what my favorite meal to cook is. Like, the ones that I really like to cook and the ones that I really like to eat are kind of different things, which is very sad. Like, all the ones that I like to eat take a lot more work than I'm willing to put in the day-to-day. We don't eat nearly as much Indian food as I would like to because I just don't have that kind of time.
Poppy doesn't make any because
Poppy doesn't make any Indian
all of those rare and exotic spices.
I feel like probably my favorite, like my best Venn diagram of not too much work, delicious, is something like breakfast sandwich or a breakfast burrito, which is not in the book. Maybe I'll put it in the sequel.
Oh, we can't talk about it.
You can't talk about it. Spoilers.
I get to read it. It's good. Next question.
Anybody?
As your brother, I've been fortunate to be able to read all of your stories throughout your writing career, which is much longer than you give yourself credit for.
Career.
One of my favorite things when we were kids that you did was you would draw or paint your characters to visualize them.
Yeah.
How has that changed?
I use The Sims now.
You what?
I use The Sims.
Oh, you did that too. But how does that help you process? What does that mean?
I do not have a very visual imagination. And the notes that I always get from whether it's myself or from Theo or from my editor at Orbit are, your dialogue is great because could we have some faces and some places? Like,
Voices and voids.
voices and voids, like I love to write pages and pages of just like chattering with no description of who is doing it or where they are. Because I just don't think about physical spaces or bodies that much. And so for me, drawing the characters or making them in The Sims or something like that is a way to have, first of all, something to look at and describe. So I'm not just being like, he had eyes and teeth. That's enough, right? It's like, no, you have hair, you have facial structure, be normal. And, ooh, I thought I had something else follow it up. And it appears to be escaping from me. But yeah, it's basically just a way for me to take my very non-visual brain and make something concrete that I can look at and describe, so that the story is not just people sitting in a void having a conversation.
You do say that, but the thing that we've talked about before is that, like, the landscape writing, though, because this is incredible landscape writing in this book, and that is something that you have said before that you find very, very breezy and very easy to do. Is that something that you spend a lot of time practicing, or is that something that just comes natural?
I spent some time practicing it. When I realize that I am deficient in something, like in my writing, not always in my life, I'm not that functional. When early on in my writing, I thought I was very bad at dialogue. I didn't enjoy dialogue. I thought dialogue was hard, so I wrote a bunch of plays, because that takes away everything that isn't dialogue, and you're forced to make the dialogue good. A lot of it wasn't. They weren't great plays, but I practiced it. And so I know that I am bad at filling in the space, coloring in the room. And so when I come to something like the landscape, where I am drawing, in this book specifically on Montana landscape, on landscape that I have walked in and driven through and passed by over and over and over in my life, and like I know what this landscape is, I try to make a real point of trying to transfer it from my brain onto the page in a real way, because I know that it's something that it's very easy for me to skip.
Next question? I've got another one for you.
Okay.
So a big part of this book is sort of a character relitigating their past, sort of re-examining. Is there something that drew you to that specific story, that story of maybe our past isn't what we think it is, maybe we aren't who we thought we were, maybe the people around us aren't who we thought they were?
So it kind of goes back to the thing I said earlier about wanting to write lines where you read it one way, and then you come back a second time and you read it a different way, but for someone's whole life. I think it's really interesting looking at the way you think about your past and you imagine your past, going back to imagination and whether or not we can do it. And how you talk, like if I were to talk to my brother over there about something that happened to us as kids, we would not remember it exactly the same way. Like we were both there, it happened to both of us, but our individual details that we recalled would be different. And if I were to try and travel back and watch it happen, that would be different than either of our projections. It would not be the same. Especially if something is interesting or good or funny and it's something that you talk about and you tell people and you remember, that changes every time you do it. Every time you access those memories, you're polishing it, you're changing it, you're making the story funnier or sharper or sadder or whatever. And Poppy, my main character, has a very set idea of what her life was, what her childhood was, what her upbringing was, who her friends are. And I really wanted her to have to go and face the discrepancies. Like, the thing that she's imagining and the thing that she believes are not necessarily true. Spoiler alert, I guess, for the book's plot. That is the plot of the book, is she is kind of re-meeting these people and re-encountering the past. I also thought there's a thing in a lot of young adult novels where you'll have a 16-year-old who's dating like a 1,000-year-old immortal. And I did at one point have the thought, like, what if you re-met that 1,000-year-old immortal when you were almost 30 and had some therapy? Like,
He's fun!
he's fun! It's great! And so like that kind of thing, I think is interesting. It's fun to look at and imagine.
I think we've maybe got time for one more question, though we should probably move on. Does anyone have any?
Anyone? Yes.
I mean, would you consider this a YA book?
No,
or-
it's absolutely an adult novel.
Absolutely. Got it. You heard it here first, guys.
Not in the sense that there's anything in there.
You're right.
Not super, it's
It's about this like nostalgia and kind of relitigating your past.
Mhm.
And I don't think that a 16-year-old is going to connect with it. Like, it's enjoyable. Like, I think that a 16-year-old could read it and probably
have a
enjoy
good
it.
time, find something valuable.
But
Yeah.
it is meant for an adult audience.
Okay, I think that was it. Thank you all so much
Thank you
for
all so
coming
much
out.
for coming.
Right. Thank you guys so much. That was such a fun dialogue. I really appreciate that. Thank you all for coming out tonight as well, today, this afternoon, whatever it is. On your chairs, there are some event surveys. If you would take a moment to fill that out, that would be wonderful. And then you can place them back here. I do have pens on my table as well. And then you also have our event booklet for the rest of the month. A couple of fun things. Next week is National Library Week. Woo, go libraries! We are celebrating here at the library by hosting a documentary with Indie Lem's pop-up films titled The Librarians. It will be right here in this room, and then after the film we will have a panel discussion with local library professionals as well. That is going to be a great time. I'll make popcorn, I promise to not burn all of it. And then on Thursday of next week, we have an author talk with Russell Rowland with his new book, Be a Man. And then the week after, we do have a very exciting opportunity. We are bringing Mariah Gladstone down to Great Falls again to do an indie kitchen cooking class with us. So we're going to do a taste of indigenous foods. Mariah was just featured on Chopped, so that's super cool. And we get to have her here on the 28th. I do have all of that information on the table if you guys are interested. Thank you all so much for coming out. Please purchase a book, get it signed, have more conversation. The library does not close for another 36 minutes. So we have time. Have a great night, guys.